I'm going to share my screen with you, babes, and we're going to get started. So this will.
Can they hit refresh if it cuts out on them?
Yep.
Okay, awesome.
If it gets funky, just hit refresh, and you'll pick up right where you left off. So no worries on that, guys. Okay, so let me know if you guys can see my slides before I start teaching. Hi, Sierra from Kansas City. Thanks for hanging out with us.
I can see your slides.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should be good to go. If you know what this webinar topic's all about, then you're in the right place. Legalize My Biz, Business Formation Basics. So we are going to get your booties legal babies. Okay, thanks, Ashley. I'm glad that you can see them. Okay, so babes, you belong here. Maybe this whole small business ownership thing is kind of overwhelming you, and you're just getting your feet wet, and you feel like there's 75 bajillion things that you've got to get done like ASAP, or like the government's going to come in and like take everything from you, or someone's just going to like sue you tomorrow and like shit's going to hit the fan. So you want to start out on the right foot, or maybe you've been doing this for a while, cough, cough, Abigail and myself, and you kind of feel like some of the stuff you might be doing a little bit off the books, and you really, really want to make sure your booty's covered in case anything goes crazy, and you need that protection.
You are so in the right spot. If you're overwhelmed with all the articles, the legal jargon, and any of the noise surrounding being in business, like, we get it. We totally understand. You might not know where to start, and most people don't. You think about it. Most people who start a business, like, they have a skill, but they're not told, they don't go to law school, they don't know everything they're supposed to do to be right with the government, and not to mention, every state has their own laws, which makes it even more complicated. So, regardless of where you're at, regardless if you just started your business, you just have an idea, or you are in an existing business, but you feel like you need to make some adjustments, no worries. We have you covered. This is the right place to be.
So we've heard your excuses, babies, because we have made them too. You think maybe, okay, I'll get legal and I'll get that LLC, or I'll figure out what a sole prop is, or I'll actually look into that stuff when I'm making a certain amount of money. Or you think that organizing all of this stuff and actually getting your butt legal is going to be too hard and too expensive, and it's going to take way too much of your time Googling all the things. We get it. So maybe you think whatever kind of makeshift situation you've got going on right now, that contract that you looked up from Google, or that one Etsy shop from that lady that also makes sock puppets, is going to like work for you. You think no one's actually going to read it and no one's actually going to use it, but we're here to set you straight.
Because the goal, babes, it's to help you build a business, not a hobby. So I know some of you have a hard time thinking of yourself as a business owner, but heads up, you are. So now is the time to help you get your stuff in order, not just the legal side, but all of it. We want to help you feel like you're in control and like you have a place to go, like you have a goal in mind. And we're going to start implementing today. So who's ready?
So here's what we're going to learn today. You're going to get the exact steps to legalize your business, but minus that headache, because we don't have time for that. You're going to learn the differences between sole props, partnerships, and LLCs, so you're not just like swimming in your head thinking that you need all the things. You're going to learn exactly which one's right for you and how to keep and maintain those for your business legitibility. So what else are we going to learn? You're going to learn, hey, Goldmine, how the heck to pay yourself. How does that work? How does that happen? The mystery around like how people actually not only make money as creatives, but then, you know, pay themselves to go to the grocery store or pay their house payment still seems like a mystery. So we're going to talk about that and the apps that we use and love to track all of that money. The top 4 accounting programs that we know and love, and plus tips how to budget, cut your costs, and make extra money so your business can flourish, because, hello, saving, cutting out coupons doesn't necessarily work for creative ownership, and so we're going to teach you where you can cut costs.
You cannot miss the end. Today we're going to show you a guided way to legalize your business. And you're going to get a super special invitation from us to join the coolest small biz club ever.
It's the best.
I'm not just joking about that. It is super legit, and it keeps getting better and better. So, you guys, this is seriously an awesome opportunity. Plus, as usual, there's an exclusive VIP bonus, so stay tuned. And I am Abigail Pumphrey, the awkward one sitting with the photo in the corner. I am the brand and business builder, flower enthusiast, and volunteer junkie here at Think Creative Collective. Emily, my cohort, is the co-founder, brand and business builder, now decaf coffee chugger. Oh, so sad, but it's true. And she's also a houseplant hoarder. Our beautiful, awesome guest here today is Christina Scalara. She is the attorney for creatives. She knows her stuff, and you better wait because it's going to be awesome. So now is the time. We are going to tell you our story in 3 minutes or less. We're all going to go, and we're all going to spin it to this top tonight. So Emily's first up.
So thanks for coming, babies. There's a lot of new faces on the call tonight. So real quick, if you haven't been introduced to us, thank you. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us, or whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. We so appreciate you taking the time out of your day and hanging out with us and learn some kick-butt strategies. But my name is Emily. I'm the other half of Think Creative Collective. I basically was born with a camera in my hand. I've been shooting film and digital for, oh my gosh, 2 decades now, and love it to pieces. I eventually graduated from the University of Missouri because was going to head to SLU for grad school, and 2 weeks before classes started, I decided to walk away. It just didn't fuel my heart, and I knew for some reason that that's just not where I was going to love and live my life. So I moved back home and kind of had a freak out moment for like a year of what the heck am I going to do. My boyfriend at the time followed me like a little creep, and we ended up getting engaged and got married and bought a house in less than a year, and I had no clue what I was going to do. So I dusted off that old camera and just started shooting things that I loved. I shot for free like a lot of us do, and definitely did not have a legit business the first go around. Didn't even know what that meant at all, but built a pretty profitable, amazing photography business from the bottom up, shooting friends, family, and close people in my community, and was able to work from home at 24, which is insane. I started working with small business owners just like you at the end of 2014, and as soon as I just started seeing these light bulbs click when we were strategizing about your business and your goals and like seeing big dreams come true and happen for you and your business, I knew this was my happy place and this is where I wanted to spend the rest of my life. So I started working with more creative small business owners, and I knew for sure that that's where I wanted to be, and that led me to meet Abigail online. Hello, you never know when you're going to meet your biz BFF, and we kind of took it by storm and opened Think Creative Collective last year, and we've been having fun ever since.
Yeah, so I'm Abigail. I have a design background. I went to school for fine art graphic design. I hit the real world and a little bit panicked and felt like I needed this legit corporate job because that's what it felt like I needed to do. I felt like I needed to climb some corporate ladder, and so I worked for an agency, worked in nonprofit, and worked at several corporate businesses before I got laid off, like many, many Americans. And instead of looking for my next job, I decided to take that side hustle that I had been working on for several years and not been taking very seriously and actually make it a business. And it has been such an incredible journey. I really didn't know what I was doing at first. Not that I didn't know how to do my craft. That was never the issue. But running an online business, especially one that was supposed to support me and my family and my 2 beagle babies, it was really important that I do it the right way. And there's been a lot of hurdles along the way, and I've learned a lot of things about things I never even thought I needed to know to run a business appropriately, but being legal is just one of them. So I'm really excited you're here, and we are so excited Christina is here, so she's going to tell you a little bit about her background and why she is here today.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for this amazing introduction. You guys you don't know this, but they have just taken my little tiny outline and made it so beautiful. I'm just so impressed with their graphics design skills and everything. So thank you guys so much. I'm really excited to talk to you guys tonight about business formation, but before we get into it, I just want to give you a little bit of a background and tell you a little bit about why you should even listen to me tonight. So like a lot of you, I just went to school, did that, went to college, went to law school. I knew I was going to be a lawyer, and I was going to, that was my path in life, and that I just kept working for that next legal position, that next law school, the next LSAT score, whatever it was. And so I was in law school, and I felt like I just never really belonged. I couldn't really place the feeling as to why I didn't belong and things like that. I had a lot of jobs. I worked in-house a little bit. I worked in the legal field. I worked at a law firm for a while. And so I had all these different jobs, but nothing really felt right. And so about, 2 years ago, I decided that I was going to leave the legal field. That was it, just this big corporate stuff. It wasn't working out for me. And so I picked basically the career that I thought would be the furthest path away from the legal field, and that was to teach private yoga. Don't ask me why. I know why. I found someone in that field, and she had been a lawyer as well, and so I was like, oh, well, this is just a natural transition. It's already been done. I should do this too. And it was not a natural transition for me. I was a very bad private yoga teacher and an even worse marketer, because it turns out that I'm actually pretty good at being a lawyer and doing legal things. I just didn't know that I didn't like my client at the time, which was, big corporations and things like that. So I figured out through running essentially my own business and starting my own website and accidentally having this blog tab and starting to blog and getting into graphic design, because, when you have a blog, you have to have pictures on there. It can't just be blank and words. I learned all about this creative community, and I was so fortunate to be part of, the Rising Tides as it first started last year, and got more involved with them this year. And so it introduced me to this whole community, which you guys are all a part of, which are creative entrepreneurs. So photographers, stylists, designers, all of that are the people that I call up on the phone, that I'm friends with, that I spend literally every single waking minute with, and I couldn't be more happy to have that kind of connection in my life. And so I'm so thrilled to be with all of you tonight. And if any of you are in Atlanta, it's where I live. It's where I went to law school here at Emory. And so I would love to get to know you a little bit more. I am an attorney here in Georgia in the United States. So a lot of this is going to be applicable to everyone in the United States. I can't vouch for outside of the United States, but it will be probably pretty similar, since most countries have based a lot of their legal premises off of the United States. But again, you'll just have to be really careful outside of the United States. And since we are talking about business formation, it's going to vary a little bit by state, but that it shouldn't scare you. It's pretty. There's going to be similar things all throughout the 50 states and the territories and things like that. So it's going to be a really great overview of what we're going to expect as we form our businesses and as we get ready to legalize them, in a sense. So with that being said, I think we should just jump right into the materials and talk about so when we finally treat our businesses like a business and not a hobby, it's a huge turning point, because not only fiscally for our financial welfare and all that, but it's also a huge turning point because it means we're making money. It means that we're not losing money anymore. It means we're turning a profit, and then it means that we can start to get away from that 9-to-5 job that's holding us down, or maybe a different life path that isn't really serving us. Maybe we want to have kids or travel or something like that, and having that creative pursuit is what's going to get us to that place where we can travel with our kids, or we can pursue our creative passions, or do something that we really love. So yes.
Do you want me to stop sharing over here and then you can take over?
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead and grab. We'll flip the screen here a little bit for you guys if you don't. Just hold with us for a second.
My face for a hot second.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, so
Awesome.
maybe, yeah, scoot it over just slightly so it can cover up your,
The chat?
yeah, just so we see, yeah, that should be fine.
Is that better?
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, great. All right, so like I said, just because I'm a lawyer and I have to do this, there's just a quick little disclaimer I want to run through with you guys just so that we're really clear tonight. I want to let you know that this presentation is only informational in nature, and I don't want you to construe this as legal advice. This is just going to be information. And so because I'm an attorney and I'm an attorney in Georgia, I'm not your lawyer until you sign that client engagement letter and things like that. So anything that you send me, if you guys decide to send me questions, I welcome questions, and you're welcome to send me whatever you want, but please know that it's not going to be privileged or confidential or anything like that. So if you're going to send me, your life story or your contract or something like that, I'm not necessarily going to look at it if I feel like it's going to compromise that confidentiality or something with you. So just know that ahead of time, and if I can't answer something, I'll let you know I can't answer it. But go ahead and try, if you have a question that we don't get to tonight or whatever. But if you do have a question about your business, about your intellectual property, so like trademarks, copyrights, we're going to cover that that's in 2 weeks, I think. Or your contracts, we're going to cover that next week, or any other legal matter, you need to contact an attorney to talk about it. So this presentation is a great overview of legal concepts, information, the basis of the materials contained they could change at any time, which is why I say you need to check with that attorney. So with that being said, let's get started. Okay, I love this topic tonight because so many of us, we start these businesses and we hear all this information. Should we be a sole proprietorship? Should we be an LLC? What's that S Corp weird thing out there? I don't really know. Like, am I doing my taxes right? Is the government going to come after me? Am I going to get sued? All of these questions. And the good news is, if you're at a point where you're just starting your business, you're probably so painfully small, and I mean this in the most loving, fun way, you're probably so painfully small that the government doesn't care about you. If you're not turning a profit, those kinds of things, I mean, they're just not paying attention to you. But that doesn't mean that you should just completely ignore any kind of risk or things like that that could be coming up later as you do start to turn a profit, as you do start to gain those clients and live that life and that career and that lifestyle that you're seeking as an entrepreneur. And so by default, we are all, when we start a business, sole proprietorships here in the United States. That's just the default setting that's given to all of us unless we're entering into a business with a partner, and we'll get to partnerships in a second. So the problem with sole proprietorships is that while they're a business entity technically, they're kind of the pseudo business entity. So there's not really any protections that are afforded your way like you would get in a limited liability company, which is an LLC. And there's also a lot of risk that's potentially involved when you have a sole proprietorship. So a lot of the problems with the sole proprietorship are also the problems with the partnership. I say the dangerous partnership because, let me just back up here. The biggest problem with sole proprietorships is that if someone were to sue you, or if you were to somehow owe money tax-wise or something like that, you don't have what's called a corporate shield. So the limited liability in the LLC is actually a little form of a corporate shield that protects your personal assets from any kind of liability that you would incur in your business. Basically, if you are overspending on your business credit card, or if you are sued by someone in your line of work, let's say you're a photographer and you're just completely negligent and hit someone in the head with your camera on purpose or whatever, and they sue you for hitting them in the head with this like giant camera that you should have known was in their way, or they trip over it, whatever. This is all hypothetical. If they sue you in the line of your business and you don't have any kind of limited liability corporation in effect, they're going to be able to go after your house, your car, your kid's college fund, your dog, your whatever, your horse. I'm a horse mama, so I love those horse analogies. But basically, I'm just saying, like, they're going to be able to come after your personal assets and your personal property because you haven't taken the time and the very small amount of money to invest in protecting and treating your business like a business instead of a hobby. So I call the partnership the dangerous partnership because it's even more dangerous than a sole proprietorship. Where a sole proprietorship is it's just you, and you're liable for your own actions, and you're obviously personally liable. Your personal assets are at risk there. The partnership is a really, really interesting entity because it's the default if you and someone else enter into a business together and you haven't formed any kind of corporate entity to protect yourselves jointly, like you and your partner. So if, for example, if you had like some kind of LLC or a C Corp, which is what you see the Inc. after some corporation names is like comma INC. So C Corp, LLC, whatever, your corporate entity is what it's called. You haven't formed anything like that, but you've gone into business with someone else. You've started a partnership. It's your default legal status as a business. And you are now, since you don't have that corporate formation to protect you, you and your partner are now what's called jointly and severally liable for the actions of each other. And this could mean, well, I'm sorry, I was just about to say, partnerships don't necessarily mean just two people. So partnerships could be, 5 people or 6 people or 10 people, whatever it is, like however many partners there are, even though it sounds like, we think of a partnership as 2 people. I'm referring to a partnership as any number of people joining this partnership in collaboration for this business to succeed. So let's go back to that joint and several liability. I want to be really clear on this. So what joint and several liability means is exactly what it sounds like. You're jointly, so you're each separately liable for the actions of each other, and you're also, you can be held accountable severally. So if the other person goes into a lot of financial debt, like maybe they take out a loan, maybe you don't even know about the loan that they take out, you are actually personally liable for that debt at that time because you're jointly, so both of you are liable for that debt, but you're also severally where either one of you can be liable for that debt. So that's why I call partnerships dangerous, because if you have a bad business partner, if you haven't vetted them ahead of time before you go into this deal, if you haven't taken the time to form some kind of corporate entity to shield yourself from, a business deal gone wrong or a partner that goes rogue or something like that, you could be paying for whatever, a very expensive credit card bill or some kind of purchase that your partner's made that maybe you didn't even know about. And, if the collection agency comes after that partner, they can come after you just as much. You're just as liable for paying off that debt. And again, that corporate shield isn't in the way to protect you. So if that debt collection agency comes after you, they can get a lien on your personal assets and things like that. So that's why I call it the dangerous partnership. And so then that leads us to the pros and cons of becoming an LLC. I'm talking about LLCs tonight because for the majority of this audience, an LLC is a perfectly appropriate business entity to use as a corporate formation. Obviously, every single person is different, and it's a great idea to talk to an accountant, and we're going to talk about a little bit later about how to do that for a little lower price than maybe normal. But for the majority of the audience, I'm going to focus on LLCs tonight because it's a really great business entity that's relatively new. So in the past, 30 years ago, the LLC didn't exist, and you would have been forming this, what's called a C corporation, and maybe having like lots of DBAs, so doing business as, and filing different names here and there, and it was very confusing. There was a lot of paperwork. It was more expensive. There were lots of different filing requirements. Basically, the states were like, this is really junking up our flow of commerce. It's not easy and conducive for new small businesses to enter the realm of enterprise or whatever you want to call it. Like, there's not enough new business happening, so what can we do to fix this? And so the limited liability corporation was adopted by almost every state at the time. And at that time, the LLC was it's just been so great for small business owners since then, because it gives you the benefits of a corporation while still remaining, you can still operate exactly as you're operating right now as a sole proprietor. So that's one of the really great benefits of being an LLC. Let's talk about the pros really, really quick, and also that's why I'm not going to be covering in depth about C corporations and other kinds of business entities. There's like LLPs and all the limited liability partnership. That's usually for professional corporations like lawyers and things like that. So we're going to focus tonight on an LLC, since that's probably the entity that most of you are going to be looking at. And if you have any questions about the kind of entity that you should be forming, a lawyer is a great person to ask from a liability standpoint. An accountant is who you want to ask for from a tax standpoint, unless it's a tax lawyer. And tax lawyers actually go to special school just to be tax lawyers. The tax code is like some ridiculous length. I think it can fill up like, I don't even know, the statistic was like 50 baseball field stadium. I don't know. It's ridiculous. So
my brain.
Yeah, it hurts my brain too. I'm not a tax attorney, but business formation, luckily, is really, really simple, and for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. I know, like, don't stab me in the eyes as I'm saying this, I promise. It's not the worst thing that's ever going to happen. And you only have to do it once, which is the great part. I'm echoing on somebody. I think I'm not on mute. Okay, it's better now. All right, awesome. So that's why if you guys have questions about the other kinds of entities, we can certainly talk about that in the Q&A. But just because most of you are going to be looking at LLCs, let's talk about that now. So obviously, we've talked about the pros and cons of being a partnership or a sole proprietor, which, again, are just the default. So if you go ahead and look at forming an LLC for yourself, what are you looking at as the pros? Well, obviously, you get that corporate shield from the personal liability. Your personal assets are less likely to be touched. You also have, it's a much easier financial structure potentially, especially when it comes to taxes and accounting and things like that. When you form an LLC, if you're making enough money, you can also elect to file as an S corporation instead of a sole proprietorship. And when you become an LLC, it's just an added benefit where you can enter into contracts as your company. You can do this without being an LLC, but obviously it's a lot more meaningful and impactful when you're entering into contracts with your clients, and looks a lot more professional as your corporation. So, I enter into my client contracts depending on, if it's like a mentoring client, I'm entering into them as Christina Scalera LLC. If I'm entering into a legal relationship where I'm their attorney, they're entering into my contract, and I'm on the contract as Christina Scalera Law Group LLC. So my name it's not me personally that's entering into these contracts with them, and that just adds an added dimension of professionalism, and also, again, protects those personal assets that you have. The cons of forming an LLC. I personally, from my standpoint, I don't really see one unless you're maybe in California. It's $800 to form an LLC there. That's very expensive. In most states, it's about $100 to $200 just to form, and then $50 to $100 or $150 every year thereafter. So, but even if you're all the way out in California, or Illinois, I think is $500 as well. So even if you're on the higher end of that spectrum, you need to take into account the added benefit that you're getting for becoming a limited liability company. So protecting your personal assets, possibly getting a huge tax break, filing as an S corp. All of the things that we talked about as the pros, and really looking at it as an investment in your business, just like you would if you're a photographer buying a new lens, or if you're a graphic designer as buying that next step up in laptops or something like that, because that's truly what it is. It's just an investment in your business, and for your business you only have to do it once. You just have to get it filed, and then every year after that they're just happy to take your little annual filing fee, and there really isn't much paperwork after that. So we talked a little bit about the S corp, and there's this misnomer, whatever you want to call it, that an S corp is a business entity, and it's actually a tax election status. So not to confuse you guys, but we've talked about a sole proprietorship. So that's just you, and that's your default if it's just you starting a business. You know, I go out there and I create Christina Scalera Photography Co. Now I have a partner. So now I'm Christina Scalera and Friends Photography Co. So those are the first two entities that we talked about. Then we talked about becoming an LLC. So my partners and I decide to form an LLC to protect our personal assets, right? So now we're Christina Scalera Friends and Co. Photography LLC. And by default, we're filing our taxes as a sole proprietor, even though we're an LLC, but our tax filing status is as a sole proprietor. Well, let's just say that we make enough money that we're going to be saving money if we actually start to file differently. So we talk to our accountant, and the accountant says, I think as your LLC that you should be filing taxes as an S Corp. Let's elect to file taxes as an S Corp. At that point, as an LLC, you can choose to file either as a sole proprietor and each member of the LLC, so maybe there's just one if it's just you, or maybe you and your partner, or you and your two partners, whatever it is. At that point, you guys can choose to keep filing by the default as a sole proprietor and paying your self-employment taxes and things like that. Or you can elect S Corp status and file now as an S Corp. And so there's when you start to file as an S Corp, you become an employee of your own company and you file quarterly payroll taxes. So an S Corp isn't available in all states, but it's available in almost all states now. And that's, we'll talk a little bit at the end, but that is a good way that some companies, if they're making enough money, they can actually save money on their tax bill every year because they're not paying double taxes, like they're not getting taxed twice on their income as they might be if they were making enough money. That's really a determination that you and your accountant are going to have to sit down and look at your exact finances to determine if that's a good fit for your business. And just really quickly, we kind of covered this earlier, but just some other tax entities some business entities that you might consider. Like I said, there's a C Corp, and that's the traditional Inc. A C Corp, just like an LLC, can choose to file either by default as a C Corp if they don't do anything else. That's how their tax filing status is classified. Or you can form a C Corporation, and then you can elect to file as an S Corporation. So there's different tax liability burdens and things like that for filing either as an LLC or as a C Corp. And so those are the two kinds of business entities that you're going to be looking at and deciding which one is best for you. The reason why the reason why we covered the LLC so heavily, though, is because when you form a C Corporation, it's kind of a lengthy process, and there's a lot more paperwork, and there's things that you have to do every year. You have to file minutes and things like that. So it's not as friendly for small business owners, but again, that is another option for you to consider. As far as limiting your liability, both are good options. So a C Corporation and an LLC both perform that function. Okay, so let's talk about how to actually do this, because a lot of you probably just wanted to stab me in the eyes when I said it was easy. It depends on your state. So the way that you legalize your biz is by forming this LLC or this C Corporation. And the way that you do that is by going to the Secretary of State website with your state. And if that's just too hard to find, or your state has it like buried in other government website pages, you can always just Google your state. So whatever, you live in Texas, you Google Texas and the entity that you want to form. So Texas LLC, or Texas how to form an LLC. And the state has an interest in collecting as much money from you as possible. So they're going to try to make this relatively easy for you. Even backward states like Georgia that are a little slow to catch up to some other technology shifts in the world and things like that, it's super easy. After you dig around the website for 5 to 10 minutes, you'll figure out exactly where it is on the Secretary of State website. They've even made it really easy for people, at least in Georgia. They've put these big buttons at the top that just say, filing, click here. So look for things like that because, again, the state definitely has an interest in collecting as much money from you as possible. And let's talk a little bit about what you're actually going to be seeing when you go to register. Because I think this is something, I know there's a lot of things that you do probably need a lawyer for, which is, like your contract review, trademark registration, those kinds of things. I think people go to law school for years and work at firms for years to get that kind of information and knowledge under their belts. Business formation, the hard part is choosing your entity, and the hard part about choosing an entity is knowing who you are and the kinds of people you serve and the income you make. And that's a lot easier to do if you're not a tech startup that's being VC backed by venture capitalists out in like California or something. If you're just like a solopreneur, you're starting your own business, or you and your partner are starting a very small business, it's pretty easy to figure out that you probably need an LLC or something like that. So you already know the hard part, and you know how to go to your state and find out where you want to go and register this LLC or whatever other business entity you choose. You're going to run into a few things. You're going to need to have an address that you're okay with being public, because hear this question: what the heck is a registered agent? When you go to register your business formation, your entity, your LLC, your C Corp, whatever, it's going to ask you for a registered agent. And all that is someone that's able to receive what's called service of process. And service of process is exactly what you see on TV, where like they're evading the car that has the person that's serving the lawsuit, and it's really dramatic. And in real life, it's never like that. Or I should say very rarely like that. A registered agent is just someone who can accept legal documents like a lawsuit or whatever, a tax filing, some mail from the state, the mail from the Secretary of State, the articles of organization that the state is going to send you when you get your LLC formed. The registered agent is going to be the one who takes care of all of that, and they're going to be the one that receives all that mail. And so in order to send you mail and in order to give you these documents, the state needs somewhere to send it to, and they need a person to send it to. So that's where your public address is going to come into play. So if you don't have a public address that you're comfortable with sharing, because anybody can go to this, the Secretary of State or the other entity's website and look up your public registered address for your business. If you don't have an address you're comfortable with sharing, that's when you invest in a UPS store, PO box, or something like that. Not every state will take a PO box for a registered agent address, and in that case, there's a lot of little I think the UPS store has an ability so that you can not have a PO. It's the same thing as a PO box, but you have an actual address. I just use the UPS store as an example. I actually use a very local in town. Well, now I have an office at a company called The Big Fake Wedding. They have a location here. But I used to have a place that was just in town. It was a local mail shipping center. So maybe you look up and find something like that if you're not comfortable having your home address listed on your business and your business filing. So those are the things that you're going to need to think about when you go to file your business. One other thing that I forgot to put on this slide is that it's also going to ask you for the legal purpose of your business. It's good to be specific if you can figure out how to do that, if they have an option for that, but they may not. So you may just have to choose something like, any other legal purpose that isn't listed there. What the state is looking for, they're looking to make sure you're not like a check cashing place or a gambling ring or something like that. If you're a photographer or you're a graphic designer or something like that, I mean, the titles on there haven't caught up yet to where we're at in the creative industry. But you can either pick something close, or you can pick something, you can just pick that more general thing, whatever is most applicable to your business. And again, if you have questions about that, always ask an attorney or your accountant or something like that. The reason why a state does that is because a state isn't going to afford you the protection of a corporation if you open a business that is for photography. So you form an LLC for your photography business, but then a year later you decide you want to open a pizza shop, and they're not going to let you just use whatever Christina Scalera LLC for your pizza shop when you originally formed it as a photography business. You're going to have to form a different LLC for that pizza shop because the whole character and nature of the business is different. So that's the only other thing that isn't on the slide that I needed to touch on. Okay, so you have your LLC now. You're getting, if you formed it, you paid your $100, or sorry, Californians, you paid your $800. All you have to do is wait, a week or two. You get your articles of organization in the mail and your fancy little letter that says, hey, you're an LLC, and it has all the numbers and things that you need on there. What else do you need to run a business? If you don't already have separate personal and business checking accounts, this is by far the biggest thing, and this isn't even a legal thing, like necessarily. You need to go out right now from an accounting standpoint and a tax and IRS standpoint and separate those, whether or not you have an LLC. But it does make it easier because if you go ahead and you form your LLC, you can grab a tax ID number and you can open up those financial accounts in the name of the LLC. And so it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in shielding yourself from personal liability. So those bank accounts actually belong to the business, and those are what a creditor or some other, if you were sued for some reason, that's where the court would go after those accounts, not your personal accounts. And that's why it's really important to separate your accounts. It's also really important to separate your accounts from a tax and accounting standpoint because, well, I mean, obviously, you don't want to be mingling those assets. It's really hard to keep track of and all that kind of thing because the IRS will look at you if you commingle your assets with your business. And they'll look at that and basically say, like, well, you're just kind of like a pseudo business. This isn't really a real business that you're running. This is a hobby. They also, a state will also, or excuse me, a court, if for some reason you were sued and someone won what's called damages, they won money out of that lawsuit, and a court goes to take money out of your business bank account, if they see that you have been paying yourself as a person, so let's say you do a photography shoot and the person writes a check to your name. So instead of writing a check to Christina Scalera Photography LLC, they write a check to me as Christina Scalera, and I cash that. I put that in my personal account. If I do that all over every time, the court is going to look at me and they're going to say, well, you didn't treat your corporation like a corporation. You didn't put those checks that you earned in the course of your business in your business account. We're not going to treat your business like a corporation. We're going to go after your personal assets. That's called piercing the corporate veil, and that's why it's really important to separate those accounts out. Okay, so you have your LLC, you have your tax ID, and now what are you going to do with all that? You're going to put it in a business finder, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. Okay, so the next steps, keeping your biz legal. That was actually, sorry guys, I kind of skipped ahead. That was actually what we were talking about as far as piercing the corporate veil and keeping your business legal. So every year you're going to have to refile your annual registration with your state. They make it super easy. They want your money. They're going to send you 10 million emails until you refile. Don't worry, you're not going to miss it. As far as taxes and accounting goes, it's a great idea to, let's see. Oh, oops, sorry guys, I like really forgot these slides were here. So are you respecting your business? That just goes back to keeping those bank accounts separate and treating your corporation like a corporation, not, paying for your groceries with your business banking or checking account or your credit card. I get this question all the time. Who gets paid? How do you pay yourself? And how do you account for expenses? So who gets paid? If you're an LLC and it's just you, obviously you're the one getting paid. If you're an LLC and you're filing as an S corporation, you as an employee are getting paid. And how do you pay yourself for this? You just start using your business checking card as a personal account until you reach, no. You actually take a check and write it to yourself, and in the memo you write something like pay. If you're an LLC that files as an S corp, you write something like payroll for February 2016, or whatever, paycheck for February 2016. If you're not an S corp, or if that makes more sense to you, but somehow you're going to indicate that is your paycheck for the pay period that you're dealing with. So if you're paying yourself every 2 weeks, obviously you write whatever. You write a check to yourself. In the memo, you write something like paycheck for March 1st through March 15th, something like that. And then how do you account for all your expenses? Because expenses are things that you can write off at the end of the year. There's 3 really great apps to track all this. So Expensify is one that I'm not as familiar with. I just started using that. MileIQ is one that I use. It's great. It tracks it in the back. It tracks your mileage in the background and pops up on your screen if you have it set to. You can swipe left or right. I haven't used Tinder, but I guess it's like the Tinder of of expense apps. So I guess that makes it a little more fun. I don't know. You can swipe left or right for business or personal, and then there's the expense tracker app. If you're more like me and you like to sit down at a computer and input it all at once, here's some really great things that you could also try. I actually think I'm going to finally go with QuickBooks. I've just really enjoyed using that platform. That being said, I have some experience with Xero and FreshBooks, and those are both great platforms. Why You Need a Budget is also a really great platform that I've heard about. I haven't used that one personally. Okay. Really quickly, because I know money is always an issue when you're starting a business, what do you need to look for in an accountant? Because I do think it's really important. If you can't afford an attorney to review your contracts or register your trademark or whatever, find some money somewhere or hire an extra client to get an accountant or a tax attorney to look over your taxes every year, or at least once every couple years if that's all you can afford or something. Like, figure out a way to make it happen, because an accountant is so important and vital in your business, not only because they can save you money, but also because they really end up being a great value and investment for your business, and making sure that you're doing everything correctly as far as tax filing. And so if you don't know how to afford an accountant right now, look for free consultations, new accountants, free referrals, things like that, friends of friends. There's always someone out there that probably has like a 20-minute consultation thing that you could maybe answer the question really quickly. You can also get discounted sessions during slow seasons. Obviously, right now may not be the best time, but it depends on what time of the year it is. Just check to see when the local filing and federal and state filing deadlines are, and try to contact them after that, after all the procrastinators have gotten their taxes in. And then finally, try to figure out if there's an accountant that will give you a referral fee for referring your friends, because, I mean, just by accident, I refer a ton of friends to my accountant. I don't get a referral fee, though. So.
Yeah, we personally know and love Amy Northern, CPA. She is she's amazing. She is the accountant for creative, so she specifically works with creative small business owners, so she knows the deductions and how it works, and ways to look for things for you guys. She offers free consultations, so you can have a free chat with her about maybe if you guys are the right fit or just any particular questions, and she has a lot of great blog posts on her website, Amy Northern. And she also has a course that will teach you kind of how to do the accounting part yourself if you're wanting to DIY it and save some money in the long run.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, as long as you're accounting for your state taxes as well, you should be good to go. And by the way, in some states, like Georgia does not tax services. So they only tax products. So the photographers I know that only offer services, like they only photograph weddings and offer digital products, obviously the files of the photos are digital products, they're not actually paying sales tax. Their clients aren't paying sales tax on those products, and they're not. Yeah, so you need to talk to an accountant about something like that. Obviously, I'm not an accountant or a tax lawyer. I can't tell you everything about that. And I'm not a photographer, so I'm not well-versed in that subject. But yeah, just really quickly, like, was that Abigail or Emily? I couldn't see, but...
It's Emily.
Oh, it's Emily. Okay, great. Yeah, so an accountant can work with you to figure out really quick, especially if you're a baby business, they can work with you maybe before you start to get, to get a feel whether you should be an LLC that files as an S-Corp this year, or maybe you should wait until next year. You can also look for ways to write off your expenses. So, you go to that conference. This course is something that you could write off as a business expense, as a learning tool or some kind of, conference that you go to, stuff like that. Those are all things that you can write off. Your mileage, all that kind of thing. Those are all things that you can enter into and write off at the end of the year. And then finally, charitable donations. I mean, obviously this isn't why I think anybody should give, but if you do end up making charitable donations in the course of your business, like my business, each business that I open, it ends up sponsoring a child with a charity organization I believe in. And so at the end of the year, I will get special deductions. Like dollars, not even maybe $10, but say that's something that you're more into and you're giving a lot more money than I am, that could add up.